You know there's a way for nurses to start a business, but there's so many moving pieces. Cut through the crap. It's time to go right to the source and get real about what's working in business and marketing for nurses with your host, the founder of NursePreneurs, Catie Harris.
Hi, this is Catie, and this is another episode of the NursePreneur podcast. And I'm here today with Lindsay Palak-Mail. Right? I said that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Who recently just finished her new coloring book, which is Adventures in Nursing, which is hit #1 on Amazon. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
So Lindsay, give us a little bit of background. What do you do as a nurse?
So I primarily have worked mental health for my nursing career. So started adult inpatient mental health, and more recently moved into a role with our local children's hospital, doing emergency mental health consultations for the emergency department. So anyone coming through that they feel the concern is related to their mental health, we get consulted and do an assessment with the child, and then some planning with the family. And then also I teach on a sessional basis with our university, so taking the nursing students into the clinical setting, kind of on a contract basis as well. So.
Okay, so how did you get into, how did the coloring book come up? How does that relate to what you do as a nurse?
So I think nursing is such a challenging job. So people get, I think, burnt out pretty easily, and our workloads kind of tend to just keep getting heavier. So I kind of, in observing what was happening when we were giving coloring to our patients, when I worked adult inpatient, and seeing not only the benefit to the patients, but also when the nurse had a chance to kind of sit with the patient and color alongside them, just noticing kind of that calming vibe that came over them as well, and just the conversation that flowed over, patient and nurse coloring together. So I kind of had seen that, and then in looking sort of at Amazon for my own coloring book one day, noticed most of the reviews on the nursing themed coloring books basically said there's nothing inside this book that has anything to do with nursing. So people were quite disappointed. They had purchased this book, opened it up, and it's pictures, but it wasn't necessarily nursing related. So I thought it would be pretty cool to make something like that happen.
Yeah, that's great, and it's a great market to get into it. And like you said, if there's a need out there, that's how a lot of businesses start. You're looking for something, you can't find it, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm just going to do it myself. How hard were the coloring books to do?
It was pretty challenging. So I had to figure out how you do this. How do you make a coloring book come to life? So researching the process took a little while. And then the actual process of drawing everything by hand, and then outlining it, scanning it, and then editing it digitally took about a year, I guess, to get everything done and compiled and then sent off to create space for the publishing. So.
Do you think you can do, now that you have that process under your belt, is it something that you could do quicker now, or what are you thinking?
I think, yes, now that the system's kind of in place, and I know kind of some tips and tricks of how to make the editing part easier once it becomes digital, like erasing a little bit better when you take the pencil out of it, things like that would make it a little bit easier. And I think part of the process too is coming up with all the ideas. So I would get kind of stalled at, say, 5 coloring pages and just sit, and the wheels would turn, and I couldn't think of anything else to draw. So I think once I kind of overcame that creative kind of hurdle, it flowed a little bit easier. So as I kind of think through the day, if I think of an idea now, I just make a little note so that if I sit back down with it, I have some ideas to go off of.
Yeah, I guess that's the next kind of question, like, how do you come up with idea? I mean, is it something you're just sitting around and you're like, oh, that'd be a great coloring book idea?
Yep.
Basically.
At the weirdest moments too, usually.
You have to have a notebook like everywhere in the bathroom, down the basement, everywhere.
Absolutely.
That's funny. So now I hear you have this ability to help nurses to recharge in their careers too, to deal with the stress of nursing. Like, how do you do this, or what is your process for doing this?
So I started blogging, rechargenurse.com, kind of based on my own experiences, and then looking into simple self-care measures that I've found helpful and sharing those with other nurses. And I tried to find things that are easy to fit into a day because, as we all know, we're not just nurses. We've got families, we've got all sorts of other commitments going on in our lives. And I wanted to really find a way so that we're not putting self-care at the bottom of our pile. So quick things that anybody can do to just give yourself that little boost and extra recharge as you go through your day.
So the recharge message that you have on your website and the coloring books kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have any examples of how coloring books have helped other nurses? Kind of like you were talking about, I guess, a little bit before.
Yeah, so just really, I think it's interesting to watch because uh, I think when we're busy doing things, we're just buzzing around the unit, right? Everybody's busy. There's something else. There's someone needs something. Um, but yeah, just really seeing these nurses that were stressed to the max and everything's going on, but they had to talk to their patient anyways. So sitting down and coloring together, and it was just really interesting to watch how the nurses themselves just kind of, you could almost feel that sense of relaxation and just almost a recentering. And so that kind of got me thinking about, if this is beneficial for our patients, and then watching this for our nurses, is it something people could just do in their own time for that relaxation piece?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I also ordered a copy of your book and I used it before my big presentation.
Thank
Flying down on the plane, I'm like, I just need to like focus on something other than the big talk, because there's always this anxiety, no matter how many talks you do, there's just an anxiety that comes over you about public speaking. It's just it, whatever. So having your coloring book, it just come in like a couple days before my flight, so it was perfect. And yeah, it was great. I love all the images and some of the stuff that you did. I just, I'm blown away. Like the detail in this coloring book was remarkable.
thank you.
So, and again, your coloring book was #1 on Amazon. So, what is next for you? Do you have more coloring books coming out? Do you have a next steps, or what are you looking to do?
Yeah, so as far as coloring books, you have trying to get the wheels turning on theming this next one. So the first one, I guess, is sort of this compilation of all these different things that nurses come across in their day-to-day work. So I think it's taking all these ideas that I've been jotting down as I go and trying to kind of run with a theme to sort of guide the next book. So I'm sort of in that creative process there. And then also I'm really interested lately in emotional intelligence and how we can bring that into our lives to sort of center ourselves and care for ourselves. So looking into sort of, is there certification? Where do I need to go with that? And then how can I bring that into part of Recharge Nurse?
Um, yeah, and you know what? That first book. So what you've done is momentous, right? Like that first book, getting that out is the hardest because it's like the one thing that we feel like everybody's going to judge us, and if you put it out in the world, then they're going to say, "Who are you to put this book out?" But all these things go through your mind. My first book was so hard to get out, and then book number 2, 3, and 4 just whoop, they went. But that
Yeah,
first book, it's like everything's on the line putting that first book out there. So, did you have any anxiety like that?
a lot. It's kind of sad. In the edit pile, like CreateSpace had sort of said, yeah, it's been edited and it's ready to release, like it's good for publishing. And it sat there in that box for probably a week or two before I went in and clicked the okay button to let it out into the world. So
And it was anticlimactic, right? You push click and then,
yeah. Okay, there it is.
now what?
I know.
Now what is book number 2?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how can we find you?
So they can follow Recharge Nurse on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And also I have blog site, so rechargenurse.com. And they can find the coloring book Adventures in Nursing. So there'll be links to it through any of those channels or just on Amazon as Adventures in Nursing, and that would come up.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Catie.